Hi, I'm Steve Plach, and welcome to this edition of Voices from the Village. As you know, 2 weeks ago we had some of the city council candidates in. It's another large field of candidates of people who are citizens willing to put themselves out there to stand for public office. Santa Cruz is wonderful that way, and we're glad to have three more of the candidates here this evening with us. We have to my far right, Ashley Scacciano. Ashley, welcome.
Thank you.
Donna Myers, welcome Donna, and Paige Concannon, welcome Paige.
Thank you.
Before we start, I wanted to mention to all of you really how impressed I am about the work everybody's done to make this a really robust, exciting campaign. I see a lot of signage out there. I know you've all been to the campaign for it. People are talking a lot about that. And so thank you for making it exciting for all of us who aren't running. As you know, my failed bid for supervisor kind of put me in a position of observer now and voter. So it's really fun to kind of be looking at the candidates and looking at how hard they're working to raise money, to get signage out, and to let the people in Santa Cruz know kind of who they are and what they stand for. And that is kind of the theme for tonight. It's not, as I was saying earlier, it's not a debate, it's not a forum, it's just an opportunity for our viewing audience, people who don't get a chance maybe to go to one of the fora or really don't glean much from the scant coverage in the Sentinel about the campaign, to really get to know you a little bit. So I think at some point we will get into a couple of issues, mostly about city financing, things like that, and development, mostly your vision for Santa Cruz, I think, which is really important for people to understand. And I think I've found, as a candidate in the past, that regardless of how you stand on issues, that people in Santa Cruz as voters need to trust you before they'll vote for you. And so a lot of it is engendering that kind of bond of trust, and hopefully tonight people see kind of the people you are. And Greg Larson has arrived, so we have one more person. At some point we'll find a chair for Greg, so hang in there, Greg. So Ashley, let's start with you. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and kind of why you decided to throw your hat in the ring and stand for public office.
Absolutely. You know, I feel bad because as candidates we hear everyone's spiel
over
and over and over again. So I feel like I should change it to like entertain my fellow candidates.
Okay.
But for those that don't know anything about me, I'm a local girl. I was born and raised here, and my family has called Santa Cruz home for over 90 years. Did my mic just fall off?
Oh, can they hear you? Okay.
I don't know. Are we good? Oh, okay. Carry on. So,
she's miking herself up like a veteran. She put it right.
You put it going.
You put it exactly.
Here, how do we look?
You put it in exactly the right place.
Okay.
Sunday night.
So please go ahead. Sunday night in Santa Cruz.
That's right.
Okay.
So,
I love it.
so essentially, you know, I grew up in Santa Cruz. I saw what it was like when I was growing up. My family owned the Dolphin Restaurant at the end of the Santa Cruz Wharf. So I grew up in a family that owned that small business and other small businesses. So I have a understanding of sort of how the city views the community and business owners from a perspective of not really being integrated into the government, but almost having to work with the government from an outside perspective. So I bring that to the table, and it was really one of the reasons I jumped into wanting to run for council, because I feel as though sometimes those that are in the forest can't see the trees anymore, and to bring a fresh perspective, I believe is always a good thing.
Wonderful.
and maybe the right time.
Well, thank you for that. Donna Myers, welcome again. You're a first-time candidate, but you've served the city well and ably as a commissioner for quite a while. You're on water?
I was on the water commission
and
for
Parks
4
and Rec
years.
as well,
And
so
Parks
you've
and
been on a
Rec.
couple.
Yep.
So let people know kind of a little bit about yourself and why you decided that you make the move from commissioner, which is a public service position, into possibly serving on a city council.
Well, I, as a volunteer for the city, as a commissioner, I learned a lot about the city, and both from a water perspective as well as parks perspective, because parks are one of the places where some of our public safety issues and some of the conflicts that we're having in our communities right now are seen in our parks daily. And so I think parks really, my experience with the Parks Commission has really just taught me that we're at just an important time in Santa Cruz to try to figure out some of our needs for some of the folks in our community. And obviously, I'm very interested in our water solution because
Of
that
course,
has
yeah.
bearing on everything
Yeah.
else we're going to do here
Yeah.
in terms of housing and other things, economic development, small businesses.
Yeah.
So I just became more and more interested in serving as a council member because of my experience and really just not only with understanding the issues, but also as a parks commissioner and as a water commissioner, having the public come and talk to those bodies and hearing the kinds of concerns that citizens have about different things going on in town. So I'm just really interested in serving as a policy maker for our community and trying to make a difference and trying to solve some problems that I
Oh,
think we
wonderful.
all
Well,
acknowledge.
good luck with that. And I know that everybody, you and all the candidates, putting a tremendous amount of work. As I say, this is a very vibrant, robust campaign that we're having in town with many very qualified candidates, and the city is going to be served regardless of what three they decide on. Paige Concannon, welcome, Paige. You and I had an opportunity to talk when you were first throwing your hat in the ring, so
Right, we
it's nice
did.
to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Let people know a little bit about yourself and kind of what prompted you to throw your hat in the ring as a city council member.
That was a big, big decision, let me tell you. So first off, I've been here in Santa Cruz for quite a long time now. Was here, you know, growing up in the whole 9 yards. But anyways, I came back and I immediately went to the Homeless Garden Project and started helping out there, volunteering, cooking meals for the trainees,
Wonderful.
going to the farm, harvesting the vegetables or whatever they had and making lunch for the trainees the next day. So then I moved over to their community supported agriculture program and made recipes for all the people who had signed up
Oh,
for that.
wonderful.
So I did that for 4 or 5 years. And we found that the community supported agriculture, sometimes people couldn't come and pick up their share.
Right.
And so I was told about St. Francis Soup Kitchen. So people who didn't pick up their share donated it to the St. Francis Soup Kitchen. So that's where I would go over. And then I started helping them out also. And they asked me to be a cook. And
Wonderful.
that's what I did. I went over to there. Have been over there for about 15 years, give or take. So I deal with our homeless, at risk. We have a broad spectrum of people
They have
there.
a significant community of people who are vulnerable, no question about it.
Yes, and so I've been over there for 15 years, and I'm also pretty active in Seabright. My husband and I walk around, we clean up graffiti, we clean up trash, we clean up needles. We do that kind of stuff. We talk to all our neighbors. We pretty much know everybody. And whenever there's a problem, they come to us. And so we go handle it. Either he does or I do. And when the city council thing started coming up, I was thinking, you know, I'm not liking what I'm having to do.
Yeah.
I don't like
It's an
to pick up
interesting
these needles.
perspective. Yeah.
I'm tired of picking up the trash. I'm tired of running people off other people's properties who's not supposed to be there. I was getting tired of that. I'm like, so why can't I get somebody to help me? So if I want somebody to help me, then that means I need to go help also.
Right.
So then I decided that it's time for me to throw my hat in the ring. Let's see what happens. And I've been to 1 million city council meetings and I still leave frustrated and upset. So that was the other part of that decision was, you know, if I'm going to be mad, I better do something about it.
There you go.
So
That's
by
right.
doing something about it means I'm going to go throw my hat in, whether anybody liked it or not. And a lot of people did not. They tried to talk me out of it, and that's fine. I'm still here, still
Yeah.
trying to do it.
Well, good for you and welcome. And it's a tremendous sacrifice that I know well about being a city council candidate. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of energy. Oftentimes it's going begging, you know, for people to try to support you in one way or another. And then at the same time being subject oftentimes to some criticism because people disagree with your issue, your idea, or you know, even personalities enter into it. Sadly, that doesn't happen as much in Santa Cruz as it has in other places. But nevertheless, sometimes personalities do enter into it, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get candidates on as I have here, so that people know you as people. Put put names and feelings and identities to the candidates. Like say, I saw that person, I saw Ashley, I saw Greg, I saw Don and Paige on community television, and I know them a little better as people. So now when I'm kind of assessing where they stand on issues, I have a little better foundation about what I feel about that person. It personalizes it, and I think that's important. Greg Larson, welcome. Yeah, we're glad to have you on the panel as well. I was complimenting all the candidates earlier about the vibrancy and how exciting I think this particular campaign cycle is, with the high visibility of everybody's signage. Everybody is attending the campaign for everybody's out talking about the important issues, and I know that all of you are getting to the point where is it one more questionnaire, is it one more forum, is it one more, how many days does Gail Pellerin say it is to the election? But it's approaching, but you have now a vast store of experience to kind of draw from, and I think that that makes it a little easier as we go along the way. Greg, welcome. As I say, tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and what prompted you to throw your hat in the ring as a city council member here in Santa Cruz.
Well, first, thank you for hosting this. I
Absolutely.
think it's a great idea
It's a
to
pleasure,
introduce
yeah.
us to the community. And apologies for being a little late. It wasn't nearly as dramatic as Dave Lane's absence from our last forum, but I banged my head coming out of the shower, and hopefully I'm not still bleeding.
No, you're not at all.
Okay, so that's what I was my wife taught me how to apply makeup. So, in any
Welcome
case.
to the world.
So sorry for being a few minutes late.
That's
Thank
all
you
right.
for doing this and letting us go into people's homes and
Yeah.
offices and iPads to talk a little bit about what's really going on. So I moved to Santa Cruz almost 20 years ago. I was city manager of Milpitas, and my first wife passed away. It was probably the toughest time in my life. And I finished out a year contract I had with the city and wanted to start my life anew, so I moved to Santa Cruz. I thought it was the most beautiful place I could live, and loved the mountains, loved the coast, loved the rivers between, so chose to make this my home and wanted to start a family and grow up here with them as I entered my later years. So I'm an older dad. My kids were born a little after 50, and son graduates high school when I'm 70. So I'm really running for them because I just see so many challenges that are facing Santa Cruz. I think all the candidates have talked about problems and people we need to be caring for and concerned about and making safe neighborhoods. And when I used all my city experience to try to go back, what's the root cause? I think it's really lack of leadership on the council. That's no one's fault, but we've had 4 very different council members leave after one term. We had Micah Posner leave after one term, Hillary Bryant after the tragic shooting of the officers, Pamela Comstock, kind of the polar opposite of Micah Posner, leave after one term, and now Cynthia Chase leaving. David Terrasas turned out, Cynthia Matthews leaving in 2 years. And I just see there's kind of a lack of seasoned leadership that's stepping forward. So as I talked to people in mid-August about possibly running, there's, I just got a lot of feedback. We needed some practical problem solving on the council. So that's why I'm running. I think we'll talk about issues later, housing, homelessness, public safety, and all of that. But for me, the meta issue is how can we get this council to work together to solve problems, not from City Hall, but with the neighborhoods. Because we're going to have a budget recession that's going to we're going to have a recession that's going to lead to a deficit. We have climate change, we have a drought, we have rising crime, we have a downtown we need to preserve despite the economic changes of the internet. All of that takes a lot of collaboration working with the community, not just in offices in City Hall.
All right, I think people would like to know from all of you now, you've been out on the campaign trail for several weeks now, you've been walking and knocking as the term goes. What's the single issue that people have been talking to you most about as you go around? If there's one that you can say, well, this is the issue that comes up most when I'm talking to potential voters. Ashley, what would that be?
I get to start first again.
Yes, you do.
All right, I'll lead it off.
I know. I know what a relief that is when you're in a forum. So I get to ask the first question. I don't sit and wait till everybody to go clear around the table to get there. But anyway, please,
No, there's a lot going on in our community, and I think we all feel it as community members, as you walk neighborhoods, as you talk to business owners. If you're just at the park talking to somebody, there's issues that affect everybody differently. The housing topic is one that comes up a lot. And being that a lot of locals recognize me or remember me from a Santa Cruz Together meeting, they kind of run up to me and go, oh my God, what's going to happen? How do you think people are going to vote? And, you know, with being an early advocate for really educating the public on voting no for Measure M, the current rent control and just cause eviction that we are facing in the city is really scary to the community that has called Santa Cruz home, that has worked so hard to have the opportunity to buy a home maybe years ago before the prices got to where they are today. And they're really in this place of being fearful that everything they worked hard for was for nothing. And, you know, I get it. I understand that concern. So when I look at this measure, I think we're not fixing anything. We're just transitioning the burden to another entity of our community. And we really, you know, the housing crisis is a topic that we all are affected by in some way.
Right.
And this particular language for this measure is, I really believe, shifting from one community to the next and not really serving everyone 100% in the best way it can.
All right, thank you, Donna. And when you're out walking and knocking, what's the issue that people are raising with you the most in your view?
I would say that public safety is probably the number one. I think that people continue to struggle to see some of the conditions that some people in our community are living in. They struggle with the cost of what we're spending on police response and fire response to taking care of people who are mentally ill and who preferably would be in some kind of, you know, would be cared for somehow. And I think people are growing tired of not having, you know, if you leave your car open one night, you come out, things are gone.
Regrettably, we are the petty theft capital of the world.
Right. So I think people in general feel safe in Santa Cruz, but they are growing more frustrated, and then we are having increasing occurrences of various violent things that have happened, especially in the last year. And so I think everyone is feels a little uneased when they do run into someone who is mentally ill and maybe, you know, not predictable downtown. I've talked a lot with the business owners downtown over the last month. There's a lot of frustration down there. There's frustration with some of our new approaches to policing downtown and not having relationships that cross both into the specific officers, but also with people who are living downtown, and those relationships that actually can help sort of solve some of those escalating issues. So I would say that's the number one thing, and then right behind that, I think, is the housing issue. And so I think you know, and some of those things are obviously related. And in the high cost of living here, I think a lot of people are feeling that Santa Cruz is a place they want to be, but it's increasingly becoming unachievable. And then I think, to Ashley's point, people who've been here a long time, I think that there is a sense that, you know, we are sort of the lucky ones, but we've worked hard. We've been here a long time, and you know, and there's no intent on our end to not have people live in our community. So I think the thing that I find refreshing when I talk to people, though, is that people are very willing to look and solve problems together. And so that's the thing that I like to focus on when I talk to people is we have problems, but I'm finding we have a very open community, and what we need is more communication, more coordination, and more accessibility to our leadership. So that's that's my reflection.
It's interesting that you mention public safety. In previous years, when I've run for office, public safety has been the mantra. It's all people talked about, public safety. And we do have some significant problems. More recently, I was appointed to the Chiefs Advisory Committee, so I have an opportunity now to work on policy and inform on some of those things. I do think that the area policing program can work, given an opportunity. Hey, wait a minute, we have a call. Hold on. Hello, you're on Voice from the Village. You have a question for the panelists?
Yeah, we've been trying to call you for a really long time.
Okay, well, you have a question?
Sherry.
Hang on just a minute. My husband has a question.
All right. And then we'll get to you.
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, we're listening.
Okay. State of California takes care of 1/3 of the population of the nation in transients, welfare, etc. The Silicon Valley pushes people out of their region into the valley and south because of the high-paying jobs, and there's a service group over there, probably in Redwood City, that handles that, and they can't even afford to live over there. So I asked the question, why do the people in Santa Cruz County, who have not voted to take on this burden, why are we doing it, and what do you want to do about fixing that?
All right, thank you very much. I think to kind of reframe his question, as you know, I'm the chairman of the board for MHCAN, the Mental Health Client Action Network. We're the only peer-owned, peer-operated, and peer-staffed provider of mental and behavioral health services in the county of Santa Cruz. More recently, the city, through their community programs budget, has allocated some money in cooperation with the county to increase access to mental and behavioral health. So let me just ask you, is that something that you agree the city should continue as a policy? And what do you think the value to the city is in terms of public safety, homelessness, when we have increased access to mental and behavioral health? Paige?
Well, I was just over at MHK.
I know
the
you
other
were.
day,
You visited us, yes.
and I got to see everything, and I got to see a person who I literally thought was dead. So I was super happy to see her doing well and happy and healthy. I think the city must continue with the funds to MHCAN, and we need more of that. I found that if I'm having a problem at the soup kitchen, I have somebody else to call. Instead of calling the police and tying the police up for, 6 or 7 hours because they can't get to us. But there's somebody now that I can call, and I think that is so valuable at this time. It could save a lot of money for the officers, for fire, for all that. If there's somebody available to talk with that person who's having an issue.
Yeah. Okay, great. Your view on the city's increased participation in providing mental behavioral health services and the value to our community from that program?
I think the priority is to leverage what the county's doing. The county gets $80 million a year for mental health and addiction services, and the city needs to work with the county to make sure the city's getting more than its share of resources to meet those needs. I think MHCAN is an incredible program, like many of our nonprofit partners, that meets the needs of the community. And the city has to focus on the law enforcement and housing solutions and really assist the county in stepping up in meeting the behavioral health and addiction needs of our community. The example I use when I'm talking to neighbors as well is the city, with its housing responsibility, could provide transitional housing for people with mental illnesses or addiction problems, and the county could be the one that operates, or through its nonprofit partners would be even better, to operate those facilities using the money that the county gets. And that's the sort of partnership that I think makes sense, where there's real accountability for each level of government doing the work it's supposed to do.
And I'll just observe anecdotally that I believe that transitional and permanent supportive housing is really the only way that you can rise people out of true chronic homelessness into something reintegrating back into society. Ashley, your views? You someone who has strong views, I know, about mental behavioral health, about public safety, about homelessness. Do you think that there's a value in the city continuing to be a strong or stronger partner with the county in that?
Absolutely. I mean, I want to start by saying first, I think Santa Cruz, the city proper itself, is so inundated with a population of a mixture of those that are suffering from mental health, those that are suffering from addiction, and then just the general population that is choosing to be homeless. And they're all within a very small area in our city. And so when our community goes out to do everyday things, there isn't a moment or a day or an experience where you're not going to encounter one aspect of that population. And I think that's why it's so in our face all the time, because we either are witnessing somebody having a mental health issue out in the public or having an addiction issue in our public. And these are things that, you know, it's not good for anybody. The individual on the streets suffering, it's not good for them, and it's not good for those that are giving back to the community in a way that is beneficial, right? So how do we manage all the people that end up in Santa Cruz? And can Santa Cruz be the resource for everybody, right? So I think we really need to dissect it a little bit more than we have, in the sense that really understand, where are they coming from? Can we get them back to where they were from? Can we relocate them with family? And if not, can we allow them to go back to a place that they were receiving services from? And if not, and they are now here, how best can we serve them? And with the facility you work with is a great resource. I think we need to really look at the county stepping up and funding for rehabilitation for those suffering from drug addiction. But I also think where we're missing the boat is we aren't providing transitional training, right? So once we get somebody clean, once we get somebody on medication, what then? Where do they go? What do they do? What skills do they have, right? So giving them the opportunity, like the Downtown Streets team, that's a phenomenal example of giving an individual some task where they're rewarded for it, they learn something from it, and then they can go on to do better for themselves. I really want to see accountability once we provide a service, that they have steps to become accountable, to move to the next level, to be back in our community, functioning the way they would like to be.
Donna, your view of the role of the city in providing mental and behavioral health services and support?
I think that, yeah, we have to move forward as a partner with the county. I think that we absolutely need to be looking at all aspects of the issue, from the initial sort of understanding of who the person is, where they've come from, what kinds of issues are they dealing with, all the way through to really understanding how they can be a productive member of our community. And I think that is probably the hardest part I foresee, considering our economic issues and our ability to keep people in our community in not very high paying jobs. And so I would like to be creative about that end state, because I do think that you know, a lot of governments work on regional issues very well, and I think we have a pretty sizable homeless population around Monterey Bay. So I look at things like, could we be looking at Fort Ord as a place to bring folks for job training and transitional types of?
Absolutely.
You know, when I think about jobs, I know I work down in the Monterey County a lot, and you know, there's mechanics jobs and all kinds of different jobs that we don't have a lot of here. They pay well. And they could be that transitional source to somebody getting back into a secure home and living their life. And so I worry a little bit about the city spending a lot of resources without really understanding exactly where the end is, and how do we not only take care of people who are here, but have them actually excel in their life beyond their time in Santa Cruz, or if they end up staying here, what is that broader place that they're going to be successful in? So I think that's something that I would like to discuss as a city council member, not only with the county directly, but actually with our neighboring governments as well, because these folks are you know, they're part of our community, and we need to look more broadly at how we're servicing
And
them.
as a city council member, you will be governing civic resources that really have to respond to a very large community of houseless folks. By anyone's point in time counts are historically inaccurate, but by anyone's count there are several hundred unsheltered individuals in the city of Santa Cruz, probably half of what's in the county itself. So those are the folks that we need to reach out to. I've always said that there are about 3 different levels of houselessness in Santa Cruz. It's a very interesting group. Is the top third of the 900, say, are people who present with such severe mental and behavioral and physical problems that they really need help from the county itself. They can only really be helped through that. There's a bottom third that, regardless of where you put shelters or how nice you made them, they just don't want to be in an institutional setting. But there's a middle third, and that middle third, 26% of all homeless people are employed. It's the middle third that we can help with the transitional programs, with the transitional housing. And those are the things I think that the city can really step up and into as, programmatically sound approaches. And that's just kind of my observation. I don't want to take away from I'm not running for office, these folks are. Lest you think that I'm actually, a sign is going to pop up. I did want to mention once again that it is a live call-in show. These wonderful folks are here to answer your questions. So if you have a question, 831-425-8848, extension 630, and they would certainly be happy to answer. I want to shift a little bit. The city, as you know, just declared a fiscal emergency. If you listen to Mark Pimentel, who is the city finance manager, he will tell you that not only are running budget deficits now, but they they will be increasing dramatically over time. When you're elected to city council, you're sworn in. How are you going to respond to the fact that we spend 60% of our general fund budget on fire and police, and we still at the same time need to maintain our parks infrastructure and do all the programs and provide all the services that your constituents want you to do in a budget that is running a deficit? So you're the man.
Oh, okay, great. Well, I've done that for about 30 years of my career. I've proposed 13 balanced budgets to various cities as large as San Jose to as small as Los Gatos and Milpitas. And you have to look at what your core responsibilities are and what your duties are to the citizenry. And police and fire is a #1 priority for local government. And keeping our community safe is actually how you frame it, because it also includes building inspection and the mental health support we give to MHCon. It's dealing with the safety of our community is what I hear the public wants. And you started asking the question,
absolutely, yeah,
what do we
please.
hear on the door? So the door knocking questions I get the most, overwhelmingly, is where do I stand on Measure M? That's probably 9 out of 10 questions.
Of course, yeah.
And that's almost automatic for most of the people whose doors I knock on. But where I hear the passion, where I hear people's real concerns and worry about the city, is more about, am I safe? Are my kids going to be safe here? Are my elder parents going to be safe here? Can they go downtown? Can they ride their bikes to school? That's where I'm hearing the greatest passion and concern. So I think the notion of cutting police and fire is a non-starter. I think we need to increase our focus on public safety, but it's the broad definition. How do we encourage the neighborhood patrols to be even more effective in responding to neighbors' concerns and to be out there meeting the needs of the public to make sure our downtown is safe and welcoming, not only to kids, but to seniors. We need to create this nature of safety, and a big part of it comes on us as citizens as well.
Sure.
Neighborhood organizing has proven itself effective for community safety. How do we take that and put it on steroids here in Santa Cruz? My neighborhood, 70% of the homes are active in our neighborhood association. We're developing a neighborhood program to bring to the city. I hope there's not a conflict if I'm on council.
We'll see.
Of using cameras, solar detectors to power the cameras, and home-based network servers that can only be accessed when a crime report has been filed, because none of us want big brother, big sister out there watching us. But I think we can empower our neighborhoods to work directly with the police to help on a lot of this.
Actually, you're sworn in as a city council member. You're asked to manage this budget that really is looking like it's going to be running increased deficits over time. What's your solution to that? What ideas do you bring to that council seat?
I have this overwhelming urge to be sarcastic.
Well, you can.
But I'm going to refrain.
As you say, it's Sunday night in Santa Cruz. So.
Yeah, I'm going to refrain.
Okay.
And
Please.
keep on my political hat.
Okay.
Oh, come on.
I think this is definitely an issue that hasn't been addressed. And now it's going to fall to the next person and the next person. Whoever is next, if it doesn't get solved, it's going to go to the next. We're just going to kick the can. So essentially, what is happening is the transparency of our budget is really buried. There are a lot of departments, and I know this from talking to individuals that currently work for the city, that work in positions where they would never talk about how the directors are utilizing their budget, but they're pulling me aside and they're saying, oh gosh, these decisions that are being made are really not probably in the best interest of how we should be using our budget or how we've used our budget in decades past when money was solid and secure. And so I want to look at all the books. I want to look at, do we even have traction on how much money a department's getting and how we're really utilizing that money and why are you using it this way? Because when we have just this overall graph and we see percentages going to each department, do we really have accountability within the departments that are budgeting and managing their monies properly? And so that sounds a little bit vague, but I also will say there's redundancies in our city government. There's redundancies in the staff at different departments. The city our size at 65,000 should not have 850 employees. No other city our size has that many employees. Why? So understanding, are these positions that were brought on when budget was healthy and they just stayed? Because having to let somebody go is really hard. Those aren't fun decisions to make. But at the benefit of a budget, at the benefit of the health of our city, these are the tough decisions that need to be made. So I'm ready to make the hard decisions, and I think it's time we make those hard decisions because now we are in a fiscal emergency. There's no time to waste, and I will say I'm proud of the money I've raised for my campaign and what I've been able to do with the little amount I've raised. And I hope that that can transition into understanding that is my priority, doing the most with little and really succeeding at doing that.
Well, you certainly need a strong hand to manage what, in my view, is really entrenched bureaucracy in Santa Cruz. I've always thought that we were very much top-heavy in most of our departments, but that's just my view as a past candidate and as a present resident. Donna, we're going to swear you in as a city council member. The budget is presented to you. Mark Pimentel is presenting you with dire predictions for the future. What are your plans for that?
Well, I think I maybe disagree a little bit with. I think that one of the things we're going to see into the future is that local cities in California really haven't and probably won't ever recover from the recession completely. We are now we have lost some of the funding that we used to get in our redevelopment and other agencies. So I think that obviously we're going to have to do more with less, most likely. I would venture that we are taking the correct steps. We are doing the best management practices right now. We have a huge pension obligation that was handed to us by PERS.
That's absolutely right.
And that was no fault of our own.
No,
and you can speak to financial investors who probably would have guided PERS in a very different way, but now we have an obligation. I'm pleased to see that we are actually paying down that obligation already instead of kicking the can down the road. So I think that's a best practice. I do think that our budget over the last couple of years has actually become more transparent. And so I think that part of it is digging into the details. I do think that there is some redundancy in some of our departments. I'd like to really look at some of the departments and see if there's reorganization that could potentially be done. I think there's new obligations from the state coming to cities that we maybe aren't as well organized for. For example, climate change. That's a good one. It's not that we can't do that work. It's that we have redundant staff members working on the same subject across many departments. So that's a good example of one of those obligations from the state that could really benefit from us doing sort of a departmental analysis. I think that it is important to note that the city is also a utility provider. We provide water to over 100,000 people. We run a landfill, and so some of the facilities that we run, we have all the library employees, in our city. So we have some obligations
Right.
as a city that you can't compare apples to apples in some ways. But I think what's most important is the transparency of the budget, that we understand as citizens what are the pension obligations, what are the things, where's our tax dollar going, and how do we as a city follow the best management practices to keep our viability going into the next recession. And then if the state continues to take things away from us, I think we need to really figure out how to band together and replace some of those dollars lost, because the obligations around, you know, public safety and housing, all of those things do fall to local government eventually. And so we need to remind the state that we are the provider of that. But I'm optimistic that the state is getting ready with an infrastructure focus and some other things that are going in place that will have good paying jobs, and I'm hoping that will help our budget.
And I think
we'll
it
see.
is, I'll concede that part of our problems at the city level are actually structural because of CalPERS and payments we have to make and pension stuff like that. And they will be inherited by some of you, and so it's well that you're mindful of that. But those are some great ideas. Paige, we're swearing you in as city council member, and you've got to do
I
this
gotta
budget
say.
that they're handing you. Have some ideas about how we can balance that and still provide services to our citizens?
There's, you know, we're all kind of on the same page, give or take. I do know that, like Ashley, I've been pulled aside and been told, like, hey, there's 7 of us doing this one job. Do you think that maybe we should probably get together and see if we can put it down to 2 people? And the other part of that is, well, there's this committee for this, and this committee for this, and this committee for this, and this one. And then there's 3 more underneath that, and they're all getting paid to figure out one thing.
Yeah.
That's like 57 people.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? You have to cut somewhere.
Right.
And I think we can, and I think we can get over it. We certainly aren't going to remove any money from the police or the fire department. We really need to give some more to them.
Which
we have
this
to be a
city
little
council
bit.
has done.
Yeah, we need to be creative with that. I think we need the city council to come to our neighborhood. Come and talk to us. Find out what we want
There's a novel idea.
instead of
so,
what
yeah.
you want, because what you want is not exactly what we want.
Yeah.
And again, you get so tired of banging your head against the wall and nothing changes. So you have to be forceful with them to get them to come out. Yeah. I'd love to look at the budget, but looking at the budget just by itself, half of it's blacked out. You can't make heads or tails out of something like that.
Steve,
Yes, sir.
more broadly, because
Yeah.
you focused my question as we started the budget discussion on police and fire.
Please, yeah.
And the 60% has gotten
Yeah.
to be a much
And
broader
briefly, sure.
question. And I do think that's the bigger issue, because you have to look at the budget as a whole. And just like Donna started to reference, the city is much larger than its 65,000 people. We provide water, library, and fire services beyond the city limits, or beyond, we take over the university's fire services as well. So we are a much larger city, and staffing studies have shown we're not out of line with other jurisdictions. But I completely agree, we have to do that analysis at a much more detailed level. What I really love that the city started this last spring, and I believe it was under Mayor Terrasas's mandate, and it will expand in the future, I hope, if depending on the election, is to really take the budget as a community participatory process. Many cities are doing that across the state, and it does change the discussion. It gives the council new input on what the community's priorities are. And I also think those few employees who don't find a way to talk to their supervisor have a venue to raise forward ideas as well through that process.
All right, those are all very good responses, I think. It's certainly thoughtful, and I think it's something that you all will have to wrestle with as council members to provide the people who are your prospective constituents are going to expect you to maintain the park system. They're going to expect you to maintain the infrastructure. They're going to expect you to maintain all the services to which they become accustomed. And Santa Cruz is wonderful in the fact that they do provide their citizens with such a broad range of excellent services. Let's switch for the last few minutes that we have to the other burning question, really, and it's not Measure M. It is.
There are so many.
Something different.
Never lack.
But it is
Yeah.
related, and I won't ask you your position on H, but I will ask you, as a council member, how are you going to foster the development of more affordable housing here in our town, so that the working men and women, young professionals, can afford to live here, to contribute to work here, and to contribute to our economy and help our economy grow and flourish? I think affordable housing, you would all agree, is one of the keys to that. Now, what are your thoughts about that?
So, as I've been a candidate, my position on affordable housing has kind of, I don't want to say if it's changed, but it's really kind of taken on a new process of looking at affordable housing and kind of the size of our city, where we have areas still left to grow. There's not a lot.
No, we're about 95%, 90+% built out, of course.
Right. And so unless we take something down and build up, we don't really have a lot of open space to work with. And so when I think about doing something like that, that means more people, more cars, more strain on our natural resources. Oh, do we have a caller?
Yeah, let's see here. Yeah, we'll get back to you. You have a quick call for the panelists? A quick question?
Yes, I do have a quick call.
Great, quick question, please.
My quick question is, how do the panelists feel about the city managers allocating $90,000 a month for a homeless camp that only serves 50,000 people, or 50 people? Do we think that's a good way for the city to be spending their money, or could it be better allocated to help those people in a better way?
All right, thank you. Very quickly, I do want to get back to the affordable housing. Paige, quickly, are you in favor of the River Street Camp and continuing that expenditure?
No.
Okay. Donna?
I am still a little bit on the fence about that. I have done. I've talked with the leadership who are involved in that, and I am seeing some results from that. I'm seeing people transition out of that camp and actually leave town, go back to their families. So I think there's more to that camp than I think we know right now. Do I want the city to spend our resources on that completely? I'd like to see it a shared partnership with the county.
Ashley?
No.
Okay.
But I can say more.
Yeah, but I want to get back to your affordable housing question.
Okay.
That's the most
So
important
no,
one, yeah.
but there's more to it.
Yeah,
So-
no,
but there's more to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
We need to end it as soon as possible, and it does link to the question you had just asked us, in that measures 1 and 2 at the state and G and H locally are both essential to providing permanent homeless shelters in both North County to serve our population as well as South County. That's the long-term answer that we all need to support.
So actually, back to your affordable housing answer.
Okay, so as I think I left off with saying it's a strain on our natural
Exactly
resources.
right, yeah.
Okay, so we have 2 locations right now in our city that have not been developed. One is on Delaware. It has been sat there for over a decade, where there could be housing, there could be people currently living there under affordable housing. Another one's on Ocean Street. That is just turning into a really just dilapidated nothingness.
Yeah.
And so, you know, as policymakers at the city level, we can look to push our departments to expedite either changing our ordinances or working with developers who come into our city to help them build quickly, seamlessly. I think what ends up happening is there are just this hierarchy of regulations that incur permit fees and regulation fees and inspection fees that hold up projects where we could have people living right now.
Yeah.
And so there's 2 projects right now that I am just in disbelief are not moving forward. I mean, on a city level, they are moving forward, but it is the slowest process you could imagine. How can we speed this up? Because we're talking about where people can live.
Yeah, well, and I would agree. And just briefly, our friend Micah Posner, who was on council, attempted as best he could to kind of cut some of the red tape and make development a little more seamless, as you say. And he had a very difficult time with that.
Yeah.
Donna, affordable housing. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think we're, again, I'm going to kind of go back to the recession. I think we're still kind of in the declining limb here, and I think that there's still lending issues and some other things that are maybe causing some delays in this, but I agree. I think the city's processes around getting development processed and entitled probably needs to be relooked at, or at least we need to look for those sweet spots to move things forward. I'd like to see the city continue to be creative. We do have co-housing, we've done live-work spaces, we do ADUs. You know, we need to continue to encourage those kinds of things. I'd like to see us be very robust and actually go out to the world and say, look, we are one of the most amazing places on the planet. Give us your best architects. Give us your best designers. Bring them here. Tell us how to build creative, cool places that we can house people in. We don't need to just depend on Bay Area developers coming here because it's a 1 hour drive. We can attract people from around the world, and people are doing creative things all over the world right now to get people housed and keep families, you know, living in expensive areas. So I think we need to be more robust. We need to be more visionary about who we invite into our community. And I think that's part of what we should be doing in the future. That's what leadership is about, is not just shaping the box. Is it 10%, 5%, 20%, but actually being robust enough to say, look, we're a place that we can invest in. We have creative people here. Let's bring some people and give us some ideas, you know?
Paige, affordable housing?
We need it so desperately, but we have too many fees in order to even get it started. Like Ashley was saying, at Ocean Street, the lady bought the property and was going to do everything in January, bankrupt. And we are in October, and nothing has still happened. So, I mean, we need it, but can we really afford it at this point?
And as Ashley mentioned, you know, we are 90+% built out, and a lot of our development is now infill. So what happens is that developer has to go in, has to tear down an existing structure and then build another one. It adds to the construction cost. So that's something that you will all be wrestling with as council members. Greg, affordable housing?
No, the answer is we need to build it.
Yeah.
It's a pretty simple answer. The last
build it.
affordable housing project in the city of Santa Cruz of any size, I recommended approval of back in 2007. It's the very successful Tannery apartment. If Measure 1 passes at the state and H passes locally, maybe we can do another project like that, maybe on Delaware, maybe on Ocean. Those are privately owned properties. We need to see if those people want it done there. It's their call, not ours. But it could be on one of those parcels if we work in partnership with the property owners to build another tannery-like project. But maybe this one's themed towards nonprofit workers and social service workers and maybe entry-level teachers, because that's a critical fabric of our community that I'm worried we're losing.
And as you all shape the future of Santa Cruz, you will certainly be heir to the various development plans that have been on other folks' watch. There's the Ocean Street area plan, talking about Ocean Street itself. There's been an Ocean Street area plan for development there that calls for, I think, 80 feet of easement on each side of Ocean. But that's a plan. You know, and it's something that's been determined that's useful for the city by previous councils, and now you'll be, as I say, heir to that. Did you have something you want to mention, Ashley?
Well, I
wanted something on the tip of your tongue there. So.
You're good. So essentially,
I'm the host here. So.
Yeah. So
Do your job.
Very observant. So, Greg, I do want to question with Delaware, the privately owned property. The plans are for work-live.
Right.
So
not affordable, but work-live.
Work-live. However, when you build something, there is a percentage that has
15%.
to go towards it.
Right.
So I just wanted to clarify that, in fact, the owners of that property do intend to build.
It's just
that
not an
plan.
affordable housing project like the Tannery. It would be a market rate housing project with the city required 15% affordable.
Okay, well, you're all bringing great ideas, and so it's, as I say, Santa Cruz is very fortunate to have so many people who are so able and capable. It's going to be, we're going to be served very well, regardless of what three of you end up joining the four members of our current council. We're just about out of time.
I have one more thing that
yeah,
I'd like
please,
to say.
Please.
So the decision to be on city council really makes me happy that 10 of us decided that we want that job, because I think we all feel that they're not doing their job.
Yeah.
So thank you for everybody running. I did tell Greg, run. I'm like, you should
Yeah.
run. Let's do it.
Well, thank you so much. This has been wonderful having you all here. I'm really
Thank you.
delighted
Thank you,
that you
Yeah,
all showed
thank
up
you.
and
Thank you.
really, gave the opportunity for our community to get to know you a little bit, because you're all very thoughtful and very articulate, and you're very personable. And I think this is something that people of Santa Cruz really should know and need to know when they go into the ballot box and decide whom of all you are going to be serving.
Well, thank you for the
Thank you.
conversation. The
Oh, yeah.
forums are very
Yeah.
difficult.
It wasn't a 1 minute
minute.
time limit. I like not having the
It's
time
nice
limit.
to be able to just talk,
Anyway.
chat.
30
Greg Larson,
seconds.
Yes.
thank you so much. Ashley Scott
Thank
Durano,
you.
thank you. Donna Meyer, it's a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Paige, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Paige Concannon. Good luck to all of you. We'll be seeing you out there on the campaign trail. And then you have a forum tomorrow night on affordable
Yep.
housing.
We
You'll all
do.
be,
Not
we'll all
me.
be together. You'll be
can't
I will be at
some-
the public safety meeting.
Okay, some of you will be together, but anyway, good luck with all that. Again, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thank
Thank you for listening to this issue of Voice from the Village. Join us in a couple of weeks when we'll have perhaps some more campaign related issues, because we're still about 21 or 24 days out. According to our good friend Gail Pellerin, you've all got to labor for a little while longer.
you sure?
But anyway,
We're almost there.
This has been Steve Pledge. Thanks for
It's a
tuning us
marathon.
in, and we'll see you next time
Long interview.
on Voices from the Village. Good night.
Oh my
Thank
gosh.
you.
Good
Good
night.
Good job, Steve. That was great.
Oh, thank you so